So this past week, I ended up caving and putting the rest of my free cash into Google. With that being said, I managed to end the week up 2.97% compared to last Friday. Now I'm 100% invested into Google. Now, why did I do that? Probably not a great idea. However, I'm betting on the fact that, well, two reasons. I like Google as a company. I think despite all the AI bubble fears and legit concerns, based on the earnings call and just its overall fundamentals, all the different revenue streams they have, they are really diverse in their product offerings, from their hardware like Pixel phones, YouTube, to, of course, search, ad revenue, also cloud revenue, right? That we talked about last week. So they all look great. I am confident that Google is well run, well managed. They have low debt. Their profit margins are really strong. You can't really beat it, in my opinion. As a company, it's hard to find a really good company to invest in. And I think when you find one at a reasonable price, which I thought it was last week, I pulled the trigger and I decided to get aggressive. That's number one. Number two, we know the Fed is meeting soon. And a lot of people are saying that these interest rates are going to get cut. And if the interest rates do get cut, it should stimulate the economy in theory. So it's a bet, it's a bet that we are going to see a Fed cut in the coming week, December 9th. So those are the two main drivers as to why I made this decision. I guess we'll see if this was a good idea or not, but I'm going to ride it out until after the Fed meeting. This is a bet. This is a bet to see whether or not the Fed will cut interest rates. It's no guarantee, but that's what I'm doing.
Now, speaking of the Fed and interest rates, they're scheduled to meet on December 9th and 10th, which is coming up pretty soon, at which point they will decide whether or not to cut interest rates or to hold or raise them. And to be clear, when we say interest rates, we're talking about the federal funds rate, or the overnight lending rate at which banks charge each other to loan money overnight. Now, there are two major factors that go into the Fed's decision making. One of them is the unemployment rate. The other is the inflation rate. In terms of the inflation rate, they look at two very important indicators. When it comes to the CPI index, or the Consumer Price Index, this is a basket of goods and services that's measured by a government entity called the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. But these are prices of goods and services specifically in urban areas that consumers are paying out of pocket for. So it excludes things like your employer's health insurance plan and what they pay for your health care. It's a total of about 80 to 90,000 items, broken down into 8 categories. Housing, things like rent, furniture, transportation. We're talking gasoline, auto insurance, new car purchases, used car purchases, food, pretty self-explanatory, restaurants, groceries, medical care, of course, doctor visits, hospital services, prescription drugs, things like this. Recreation, toys, pet stuff, movie going. Education, which is mostly tuition, textbooks, apparel, which is also pretty obvious, clothes you buy, and other miscellaneous things, funerals, haircuts. And this data is collected and reported on a monthly basis. This basket is fixed, meaning the categories don't change, at least not very often. I think they change every 1 to 2 years. Now, when it comes to the PCE, or the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, this index covers everything that the CPI index covers, but even more broadly. So this covers not only just urban households, but also rural households. So basically all households in America. And it tracks not only what you as the consumer are paying out of pocket for, but also what's paid on your behalf. More specifically, what your employer would pay on your behalf to an insurance company, or maybe if you have Medicaid, what the government is paying a healthcare provider on your behalf. This also gets updated monthly. Big difference between this and the CPI is that this basket of goods and services is adjusted on a monthly basis. It tracks what you're spending or not spending, and it changes and adjusts the weight of the calculations of items that the consumer is consuming. So if the price of beef goes up and the consumer starts buying chicken, the PCE will account for that and adjust the weight accordingly. And because of this adjustment factor, the PCE is actually more favored over the CPI by the Fed. Now, the Fed's going to meet on December 9th. They're going to take into account the unemployment rate, the CPI, and the PCE rate. However, usually when they do this, they have the most up-to-date data, which is a month prior, ideally. But in this case, since there was a government shutdown, the most recent up-to-date data that they have available will be from September 2025. It's not great, and everyone's split on what they're going to do. I don't think the Fed committee themselves are sure yet. Jerome Powell has given mixed signals, but I think right now is leaning towards a Fed cut. Who knows? It's still a guessing game, in my opinion. But once again, I'm holding Google through this decision. In terms of analysts that are more confident about the rate being cut, they're citing things like a weakening labor market, which is true, right? They only added 119,000 jobs in September. Of course, we don't know what happened in October or November. Apparently, we're in a low hire, low fire environment. According to Jerome Powell, unemployment rate is at 4.4%. The case for why they won't cut the rate: inflation data is still high, which is true. As of September, CPI was at 3%. We'll see what PCE brings. I think that's going to be released this week, December 5th, I believe. We're not in a recession and spending is up. So that's the case for why they won't cut the rate. I don't know what to make of it. It's really a guessing game. Tell me what you guys think.